Welcome to Picks with the Professor, the podcast for a real statistics professor.
And the Woodstock to a Snoopy, Jake.
Gives you sports betting tips. I'm Professor Sides. You can follow me and find all of my picks on Twitter at Professor Sides. You can follow my friend Jake on Twitter at myfriend_Jake. Today is Wednesday, February 16th, 2022, and this episode covers today's best college basketball bets. In case you're new here, I built a mathematical model that predicts what the spread and total should be for every Division I college basketball game. That information, along with a graded A, B, or C pick for each of today's games not covered in this episode, is available in the Google Sheet linked in the show's description. A picks are the ones I love, B picks are the ones I like, and C picks are the leans. However, please remember that good and bad variance will occur, so as much as I'd like to say the model will be profitable each and every day, that is an impossible reality for any gambler. Jake, yesterday my game breakdowns 2 and 3 puts me at 5 and 5 on the week. I'm rolling the talk me out of into those. I think that makes a little more sense. I don't know. They're somewhere in the records. It doesn't really matter, right? The A plays split 1 and 1. VCU just stopped playing there. They were out comfortably and then just decided we're happy with a 13-point lead. We don't really need to win this by a bunch. That was frustrating, but my buzzer beater's 4-0, so that's exciting to get those rolling on the right track. Jake, your game breakdown's fantastic. 4-1 on the night for you there. 0-2 on the buzzer beaters. That's still a profitable night for you as well. I think we both had profitable nights on our model picks, so that's always exciting when that happens, right?
Yes. That always makes you feel better when you can see the green number instead of the red one.
Yep. What do you have for us from last night?
Last night, man, that Duke game. I know I went in and I thought Duke was gonna. I'm still standing by the point they've got to learn to finish, but man, and it's just reared its ugly head. They were up 15 with 5 left and went on a 3.5-minute scoreless streak. You can't do that and expect to win games. And like the worst part is they just took dumb shots. They play hero ball. It's like there's no leadership on the court, and that's going to come back to bite them real quick if they're not careful when they get to like real meaningful games like conference tournament in March. So they've really got to get this going.
Yeah, that Duke game I feel like was really frustrating for both of us. We each had a different play on. I had the under and you had Duke, and I feel like in our handicap yesterday, we kind of nailed what was going to happen and both lost in different ways. You weren't close to the number, but you nailed the process. I missed the under by half a point. So if someone out there was able to get a half point better, at least you pushed. So kind of frustrating that we both kind of were right around it and just neither one of us got it. So it's kind of frustrating. Sometimes those things happen, right? The good luck, the bad luck. In college basketball, these games tends to balance out, which is good. But yeah, kind of an unfortunate game. The stain on our record from last night for sure. On an otherwise good night because it was overall profitable.
Yeah.
Before we get to today's slate, a reminder, please like, subscribe, follow, and rate. We appreciate all of those things. They help us out greatly. Drop a comment if you're on YouTube. We love those and try to respond to as many as we can. We're going to kick off tonight with a 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Central game. Illinois at Rutgers. Tough place to play there in New Jersey, but the model still thinks Illinois should be about a 5.5-point favorite. That's enough for a B pick for me on Illinois -4. Illinois rolling. They've gotten healthy. They look great. Other than Purdue, I guess. Purdue just kind of like has Illinois' number, which is something to keep track of, I guess, for the conference tournament in case they meet. But otherwise, for the most part, Illinois looking really tough. I like them to win. We talk about numbers all the time, right? You know, that number gets out to 6. It's a little bit different of a story, but a number as short as 4. I think Illinois covers this more times than not. Jake, what do you have for us?
Yeah, I'm definitely on the same way. This Rutgers team is on a heck of a run right now. With the 3 teams they've beat, they're playing incredible, and winning at Wisconsin is a feat in its own. But I'm on Illinois. I like it. I'm not super comfortable with it because playing in New Jersey is tough, as a lot of people found out this year. But there's just too many things for me that have to go right for Rutgers to cover this. They've got to win the 3-point arc. They can't turn the ball over, and they got to somehow, either with fouls or pace, take Kofi out. It's just too many different things you have to do almost perfectly to like have a chance. And then at the same time, with Illinois stacking shooters 4 around Kofi, it makes it really tough because whoever you double off of, and the fact that he's got 2.5 inches on anybody on Rutgers team, he can just throw it right out of. And I just don't see them have enough strength or enough shooting to get through this.
Yep. I agree. I like Illinois as well there. Another Big Ten game. Purdue is -6 at Northwestern. That's the late slot now, 9 p.m. Eastern. 8 p.m. Central. I'm going back to the well. I'm taking another Purdue over. I'm taking over 145.5. The model thinks 149. The model's 12-6 on these Purdue over edges, so still been very profitable for us. I am taking note. Purdue the last couple times out has not looked as good offensively, so I am taking note of that. It is something that I'm a little bit cautious about, but in general, I think that's more of a blip in the road than anything else. And I think that Purdue kind of can get it back going against a Northwestern team that, kind of up and down on the season. But if they don't get us to the window this time, I will really take notice. Jake, with regards to the spread, can Purdue cover 6?
Yeah, I believe they do it. I believe they do it easily. They beat Northwestern already. I know it was at home, but they beat them by 20 and without Ivy. And so add Ivy back in and take away the home court advantage. I still think it's up there around 10 to 15. We've talked about Purdue so much on this podcast because they're just been a very good team and they're playing in a good conference. So the line's always kind of fun. And so I don't want to nail home the points, but they are the most efficient offense in the country. And Northwestern doesn't have the defense to stay in it. And this is absolutely huge game. These last two we just talked about are huge games for the Big Ten standings. It's fighting for first place. So Illinois really needs to win, and Purdue really needs to win. So there's no lack of motivation here.
Yep.
No falling asleep and riding it out to the conference tournament. And Northwestern really hasn't been good since the Michigan State win in mid-January. I think they've got one other win in that standpoint, and it was an overtime win. And it's just a terrible matchup for them. Last time Peter Nance was in foul trouble and had 9 points, and he was just useless the whole game. And they just don't have enough to compete with this Purdue team.
Yep. I think that makes a lot of sense there. Same time slot, SMU at Temple. A little under the radar game here. SMU is a 4.5-point favorite. The model thinks the total should be around 135, so I'm taking under 137. Interestingly enough, the model is 8-2 on SMU over edges, but Temple plays pretty slow. And when I've got under on either of these teams, a few times on SMU and on Temple, the model is 5-2 on those combined under edges. So the model's done a pretty good job of pegging these teams, what pace they like to play at, their efficiency, etc. I think 137 is too much. Also being the better team on the road, if SMU does what I assume they will, kind of assert their will pace-wise, but also knowing it's a road game, not go too crazy, right? Make sure that we don't turn the ball over, don't play into the home crowd, that sort of thing. That'll buy us a few extra, cut out a few extra possessions, right? Enough to get us under that number. Also, just kind of trusting the math on this one. These type of edges have been pretty profitable for us. So taking the under 137, can SMU cover 4.5?
Yeah, I think they do it. I think they do it fairly easy. They're actually 5-0 as a road favorite this year, which is pretty impressive to go on the road and not only have 5 wins, but actually cover every time you're whatever the spread has been. They're 14-2 in their last 16 with wins over Houston and at Memphis. So these games here they've got going, they get both those teams again, so they can really jump into first place of the way Houston's struggling right now. I think they're only a half game back, if I remember the standings correctly. But they are very under the radar, very underrated team. 54th in offensive efficiency, 31st in three-point percentage, and they are a decent free throw shooting team, hitting about 75%. And then on the defensive side, they're 68th in defensive efficiency. It's just they don't force a ton of turnovers. They're under 12, which ranks them in the 240 range. But other than that, they're a very good team. They've got a star in Kendrick Davis. They're really offensively, they starts and ends with him leading in assists and points and scoring 19 points a game. And the two Weathers brothers are very, very good players tonight. And then Temple's leading scorer and rebound are also questionable tonight. So I don't think there's really a lot of room here. I think SMU maybe even pushes up 10 to 15 and kind of milks the clock at the end.
Yep, that makes sense there. Also in that same time slot, the game of the night, 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Central, Baylor at Texas Tech. It will be rocking in Lubbock for sure, especially that late time slot there. Tech is a short 2-point favorite. We were talking pre-show. I'm a little surprised that my numbers don't like Tech more, especially with Joshua out. Baylor's gonna have a hard time. I think as a Baylor alum, I watch a lot. They're gonna have a hard time with only one big man. They tend to rotate both of those guys in and out, and they have entering this last game. They've had very few rotations where they've not included one of them. And so now they're going to have to figure out how they're going to handle that. They looked great without him against Texas. That was very surprising, just how easy that was for them, even without Joshua in there. Cryer didn't play. We still don't know if he will play tonight. It feels like I think it's going to be a never-ending story for Baylor with these injuries. Who's in, who's out, that sort of thing. The season's grinding along for Baylor, and they're performing relatively well given how bad it's been, but the injury bug has just not been kind to them this year. Obviously, there's been a few teams that's been worse too, but Baylor's one of those teams that it hasn't been good to. My official pick, I'm taking under 135 and a half. The model thinks 133 and a half. I think Baylor's going to struggle to score. I think they're running out of offensive options. I think they're going to want to try to play a defensive game. Tech, we know, loves to play a defensive game. So I think stylistically, I think both these teams are going to be very comfortable playing slower, grind it out. Let's have good defensive possessions and not try to do too much. If Baylor tries to run up and down the court with their lack of depth, that's going to be a problem. And the only time Tech runs up and down the court is when another team like Kansas kind of forces them to. So I think there's a lot to like in the under. Does Baylor go on the road and get the victory, or can Tech take care of business at home, Jake?
I think Tech takes care of business at home, and you nailed it with the injuries. With no big guys, they've got one other guy listed as a forward that has any meaningful minutes, and then after that, you've got three guys that are listed as forwards that have played in less than 10 games this year. So they're not ready to replace him yet. I mean, Drew's a great coach, but you just can't all of a sudden sub somebody in that's played in maybe a third of the games and be ready to go. But this Texas Tech team is incredible, especially at home. Their defense is outstanding. And like when I say this, I don't mean they're going to run up and down the court, but they play quick on either end of the floor. They move quick. They're cutting quick fast and things like that. Yeah. And I think that's going to eat into Baylor. They don't have the guards, especially if Cryer doesn't play tonight. They don't have the guards to keep up. Even the bigger guys for Texas Tech, like Williams and stuff, they step out and move and can shoot. So that's really going to spread the floor. It makes it really tough to play like high pressure defense, like Baylor kind of tends to do, rather than kind of sit back. And I think they've got more than enough offense to get this done. Even I know McCullers is questionable tonight, but I'm pretty sure he's going to play from the things I've read. But even if he doesn't play, Texas Tech's shown the resilience to drop him or Shannon or anybody else and still play at the same kind of level. I think they get it done fairly easy tonight. Probably under 10, but I think they clear the 2 mark.
Yeah, and if Cryer doesn't play, that's going to be really tough for Baylor, limited on their guards. Akinjo has been great. He's come in and been a fantastic player for Baylor, absolutely. Akinjo's biggest problem really is turning the ball over. That makes Tech not a good matchup if he's one of the main guys handling the ball. With extra guards, you can kind of distribute that around a little bit. So going to be really important there for Cryer to play for Baylor. I think to have a chance, that's not to say that he can't play. And again, like you said, Drew's a great coach. You never know what kind of weird – with Drew, they were one of the first teams. I don't know about the first, but they were one of the first teams to make that football play on the out of bounds work. I mean, Drew's thinking outside the box, doing weird things. Like they may come out with 5 guards and say we don't need a big man and do something super wonky, right? You just never really know when you have a good coach like that. But just in general, just eyeballing it, like it's going to be really tough if Cryer doesn't play because Akinjo's weakness plays kind of right in the Tech strengths. Down one of their only 2 big men. It's not going to be a great spot for Baylor. If Cryer plays, I think they at least have a shot to keep it interesting.
Yeah. He's a game changer.
He really is. He really is. We're going to go to Talk Me Out of, a little bit of a different segment. This is not maybe Talk Me Out of, maybe Talk Me Into. One of the other big games that we've talked about today, UConn and Seton Hall. UConn is a 5.5-point favorite at home. The model says UConn minus 5.6. So the model's kind of right there. I don't really have a good total edge. Jake, you like UConn though, so I'm curious, why do you think that UConn can cover the 5.5, even though the model kind of says that number is spot on?
I've been hot and cold with this UConn team, but at home they're a much better player or a much better team. They've got their 41st in offensive efficiency. They hit 35% of their threes, and they hit free throws. Those are all very key stats. But at home, they all go up. You have R.J. Cole and Adama Sagongo, that are two very good players. And then it looks like Akik is playing tonight, which that's just a crazy name to repeat your name first and last. But either way, he's coming back, and that relieves Sagongo from having to do so much defensively and lets him play a little more on the offensive end. They can shoot the ball very well, and they play very good defense at home. They force almost 16 turnovers a game at home versus the 13 they do on the year. So an extra 3 possessions really goes a long way, especially in a short number. And this poor Seton Hall team, they've been beaten up just like Baylor. Like, they just can't get hardly anybody healthy. I think they've got 6 guys on the list right now, and like the last matchup they had, UConn, they beat UConn in overtime at home with arguably the best player in Aiken back, with him probably not playing because he hasn't played in a month, I think, and not having the home court advantage. I think UConn really takes off and probably covers this in the 10 range, just because Seton Hall is just so beat up. Fully healthy Seton Hall is a different story. They're probably battling for first place right now. They're battling to stay above 500 in Big East.
Yeah, part of me wants to say you've done so well in this segment. I just want to back you every time. It doesn't really matter. Like, I don't even care what you say. Fine, I'm in, right? But listen to what you're saying and thinking about UConn at home, Seton Hall with the injuries. I think that makes a lot of sense. So I'm rolling with you. I'm going to roll UConn minus 5.5 as a B pick, even though the model thinks that the number's spot on. I think that UConn gets it done there at home and can cover that. And again, we'll roll both of those picks into our game breakdown records, which leads us to the overtime A plays. I've got 2 A plays for you. The first one at 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central, North Carolina minus 13.5. That's quite a big number, but Pittsburgh is very bad. Jake?
Very bad. And they don't have the size to battle in with Baycott, and if at home North Carolina is great, they can shoot the ball very well. I don't think the loss of Garcia is going to affect them too much. So I think they cover this fairly easy. It's probably a 20-point game.
Yeah, North Carolina can get out and just beat up on these weaker teams and just run away, put up 100 points or something like that, they did to North Carolina, like they did to. I'm blanking. Who did they?
Florida State.
Florida State. Yeah, get to that 18-0 run. Right, they can do that to somebody. And then the A+ play of the day, I've got at 7 Eastern, 6 Central, UMass plus 11 at St. Bonaventure. The model is 6-1 on A fades of the Bonnies. Jake, I think this is just too many points.
Yeah, could be a big trap game here because they just beat the rival in St. Louis 2 times in a row. Could very easily be a trap line, and they fall asleep for the first part, wake up at the end, win the game, but don't cover the 11.
Yep, and with their short rotation, if they get up 10 with 5 minutes to go, get those guys some extra rest, right, that sort of thing. Lots of reasons to like UMass to cover 11 points there. And that brings us to our buzzer beaters. I've got the best B side for you. I've got a fun one here. A little under the radar game, probably a lot under the radar game. Jacksonville at 6 p.m. Central, -2 at Stetson. I didn't even realize this. There's so many teams, but the model is 6-1 on A or B edges of Jacksonville. So I think Jacksonville can go on the road and get a victory as long as they don't win by 1. We at least get the push there. The total of the day, I've got over 134.5 in Winthrop at Gardner-Webb. The model is 9-3 in Winthrop over edges. I think that number is just way too low. And then I've got a little afternoon delight for us here. Fairfield is going to tip off the day at noon Central. I've got them -5.5 as a B pick versus Manhattan. The model says 6. Fairfield has overperformed my numbers. Manhattan has underperformed my numbers. If that holds, Fairfield wins by 7 and can cover. Jake, what are your buzzer beaters?
Got 3, and really the same reasoning on all 3 of them. They're the better team, and they're better defensively for sure. I'd like Seattle to cover the 6.5. I like Moorhead to cover the 9, and I love UNC Asheville. This UNC Asheville is probably my favorite play of the day. I think they roll through this team. They're just a lot better overall.
All right. That's all we've got for you today. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Picks with the Professor. A reminder, check out that Google Sheet for picks and totals on all of today's games not covered in this episode. If you haven't done so yet, click that subscribe button. We will get you a new episode every weekday of the college basketball season and that live Q&A episode on Saturday mornings on YouTube, 9 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Central. We have a special guest tomorrow. Chris from Hot Tips Bets is going to join us for a three-man pod. And then Friday, another special guest will bring back Cousin Jared to get his insight and how he thinks the model has done on the games that we're talking about. So lots to look forward to the rest of the week. We'll see you tomorrow. Until then, remember, you can eat your betting money, but please don't bet your eating money.